I think there's the one principle that is the most important one, and I think is the essential and most critical one to move into the mode of recovery, of healing, is the surrender, is the acceptance of this happened and it's here and I can't force it away. And anyone over a certain age will have a life-changing event. It could be to that person or to the person that they love, but it will happen. And I think it's important just to heal, to understand, to accept, and to cry about it, to mourn about it, to feel sorry for yourself or for that situation, but just accepting it, because only then you can go into healing.
Welcome to Ira's Everything Bagel, where I talk with intriguing people about everything, their passions, pursuits, and points of view. Please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and I appreciate it. Nir Peled, a Fortune 500 technology executive and former officer of an elite division of the IDF, collapsed on the floor of his home office from a stroke at age 49, and everything changed. In an instant, he lost his speech, mobility, and sense of identity. In the months that followed, he embarked on a grueling journey of rehabilitation, rebuilding his body, mind, and cognitive function, and in the process, uncovered more than he ever expected. Nir Peled has survived seven catastrophic events: a bombing, anaphylaxis, a tsunami, a violent kidnapping and robbery in the Amazon, cancer, a motorcycle accident, and of course, the stroke. Across these experiences, he developed a beyond 100% or practitioner-built system designed not to restore what was lost, but to build something stronger in its place. Unable to speak or move after his stroke, his framework is used by individuals and organizations navigating disruption, crisis, and high-stakes change. Nir Peled is author of Beyond 100%, Rebuilding Life After It Breaks. It's available on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, bookshop.org, and all the usual places. And for everything about Nir, go to nir-peled.com, and you can follow him on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And Nir, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Well, it's a
Thank you for
pleasure.
having me.
I'm hoping I'm not standing too close to you because with all these things happening to you, I'm concerned about my own safety. But at any rate, I use that as a little preamble to the fact that humor is part of dealing with what you've experienced. Am I right?
It is. It is. It's one of my seven rules. Humor is, and probably one of them, one I forget most of the time. I take life too serious sometimes, and laughing at an absurd situation can, put it in a different perspective, different lens. But it's also important to know who and when to laugh, make a
Y-
joke. Yeah, sometimes it's not appropriate and not the
You're
right
absolutely
audience.
right. You're right, and I'm guilty of that on occasion. People, when I meet for the first time in social situations, they don't realize I'm joking about something, and then they have this impression of me that changes as they get to know me. But you're right. You have to know when it's appropriate and when it's not. Well, I won't get into the all these other catastrophes that happened to you, and let's just focus on the one that really caused you to write the book and develop a strategy or strategies for dealing with it. And in your book, you dedicated it to your grandmother. Would you tell us why you dedicated it to your grandmother?
Well, she still is the most influencing person on me. She's a Holocaust survivor. Her stories are, like many other stories of people that went through that uh, journey and got out of it is, uh, mind-blowing. I don't know how she dealt. It wasn't like a week or 6 months or a year, like my stroke recovery and any other catastrophe I had. It was years and years of uh, unhuman conditions, and so she's the ultimate survivor, and she's the one telling me to laugh about life because life is too serious. And when we ask her how are you feeling, she had all the diseases. She was 90. Her body was, but old and kind of not doing well. And she used to say that growing up, being old is not for kids,
A
and
lot of people say
and
that.
dismiss the question. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, that's why I wanted to have you explain that. Why did you decide to write the book? You experienced some unique things here, and the last one, as I mentioned, the one that motivated you to write the book was the stroke. The book did not begin from day one. It really began as a journal. Am I right on that? In other words, you were taking notes when you were recovering and struggling to recover. And at some point along the way, you realized this could have become a book.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I started as a journal, me recording videos of myself gaining the speech back. And I have those recording and I'm just talking to my mom. I didn't want to talk on the phone because I didn't want to worry her. She's in Israel, so far, far away. And so I recorded messages and I found myself recording the same message, try to record the same message over and over. And I made it a habit of, and I call it my captain log. And I started the captain log. Today is June, whatever it was. And I just, went through my day and my thoughts, my emotions, and what I'm going through. Then when I started typing, was first with one finger and then two and then more, and then both hands, I find myself, doing more of writing, and it gave me like a place to vent more than anything. As I was writing it, I well, I discovered that I'm discovering. I put a system in place because I called it. I have my rules. I have my principles. I have my practices, and I'm writing it as such. And I this is my engineering mind, maybe my MBA mind is kind of making order in this chaos. And I found myself going back to those elements that later turned into a framework when I needed, when I didn't know what to do, when I
Hmm.
was down, when I was in pain, when things didn't work out. And there was very often that things didn't work out as the way I planned it. Um, a year into it, when I noticed my speech therapist is taking notes and asking me, can you repeat, what did you do? And we're sharing the strategies. She's the professional of speech therapy, and I'm, sharing me as a stroke recovery patient, telling her what works for me and what didn't, and how I dealt with those situations. And she's taking a note, and she's like, partly joking, maybe said, "Oh, you should write a book about it. It's good coming from a patient." And at that point, it planted the seed. And a few months later, I decided that I'm gonna turn it into a book. I worked with an editor that told me, she took away half of the things I wrote, and she said, it might be interesting to your mom, but nobody else.
Yeah, don't
But
take it personally when the editor tells you you have to cut out pages. Yeah.
Yeah, and she did a great job, and I turned it into what I think is the not just my recovery story, but also how I discovered this framework, this strategy, and the rules. How the rule of making fun. I call it the humor rule. At what situation that I turn into joking with the nurses, and to heal myself, to deal with this absurd situation of me trapped in my own body and not able to move or even wipe my butt. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah,
it was quite a journey, and that term is used almost a little too much these days, the word journey, but it was in your case because you're going from a stroke to here you are talking with me about your book. What's the 1% rule?
this is the most useful rule, and I think it's the one I go to even today. And what it means is that I was not looking for dramatic changes. I figured out that I can, I need to pursue small, tiny, even invisible improvement and celebrate them. And it could be anything. If flickering my finger or is one thing, so that's the body having crying and releasing this that emotional pressure, meditating for 5 minutes in without getting angry. Um, Anything can be celebrated, and eventually it's compound. And over time, and this is it. It comes to help people like me that want to go back. My old me was, pursuing going back to who I was. I told myself, and I even wrote it in the, well, I talked about it in my journal. that I'm gonna break every record that they have for stroke recovery. I'm gonna be back on my feet in no time, and they'll see. I'll show them all. And when force doesn't work, I'm gonna use more force and different ways. But force doesn't work. It's a marathon. That's the first thing. So it's a long journey. So time is my ally, or it can be my enemy if I'm not treating it that way. And the 1% rule is how I dealt with the notion of wanting to accomplish more in a short amount of time and just being comfortable in the small improvement. And even if the improvement or progress is me taking a nap, and something that I thought, sleeping is for babies, right? We'll sleep enough in the grave. Now there's no time for sleeping. So that was my instinct or my intuition was to pursue. And the 1% rule is kind of it also, as I think the other important thing, when I feel bad and, I didn't make any progress, I got to a plateau and I start, you know, uh, um, hating myself and hating my situation and hating the world and hating God and in a dark place. If when I was in a dark place, I used to go and try to find this 1% improvement that I just had this last 24 hours, last 7 days. What was this one thing I did that made me 1% better? And there is always something I can find. And that kind of it doesn't solve. I mean, eventually this cloud days takes time to relieve, but it gives a relief, a sense of, it's like exhaling and ease the darkness. And slowly, gradually, it goes away and I find myself in a better place. But that's the 1% rule.
It seems that you are being very practical in this sense because you didn't even say a 10% rule or a 5% rule. It was 1%. So you look for one thing that is a sign of it's incremental in a very, very specific way. One thing that will work for you. And if it's not this, it could be that. Or if it's not that, it could be something else. But at least you're looking for it. So from a mental health standpoint, that makes sense. And I think too that clearly from talking with you and your accomplishments and also your catastrophes, and there were many, were a type A personality.
Yeah, I mean, I did the math, 1% over time compound, and I think it's like 70 days, it's double. Um, I remember I read about like in a self-help book for business when there was a cycling instructor or cycling coach that went to a losing team and he made them improve one thing that make the team improve in 1% and it showed the math. Um, so yes, and I'm trying to be practical when it comes to my recovery because my identity was lost when I couldn't speak when I realized I'm not thinking as well and my speech is gone in both languages. So it was very frightening. And there's those emotions and the things that I shoved and I didn't cry for many years and I pushed them aside. All those dark emotions and fear and these are things that a real man don't do. They don't cry. They're not afraid. They're conquering. And when I was pinned to a bed and I had to draw into my previous experiences when I had those emotions, I realized that I gotta deal with them. I cannot suppress them or shove them aside and push them for later. So it's not just the body that needs to heal; it's also the mind and the cognitive, of course, but also the emotional side of it
Sure. The spirit too.
and the spirit too.
Yeah.
It took me a while to figure out the spirit. It took me a few weeks, and then when I was really angry, I remember asking God or whomever is up there, and I was looking up and saying, "What the heck?" I use a different term, but more vulgar. Uh, why again? Why are you trying? What are you trying to tell me? Why are you not? And I remember when I was literally dying. the curtain was closing and I was saying my goodbyes in my mind. And so when in few weeks into recovery, I was still angry and many times angry and frustrated and couldn't find a reason why. I mean, they couldn't, it's not the physical reason what caused the stroke, but why me? I was 49, best shape of my life, top of my career, social life, vibrant. I have lovely, wonderful, wonderful family. What the heck? And those questions, and then I had conversation with the rabbi. I'm Jewish by, I'm Jewish, but I'm not a practicing Jew. I'm not
You're not
in Buddha.
observant,
Yeah.
right?
And and I have my own relation, and I created these spiritual practices because I think what gave this body mind recovery journey ability to sustain for more than a few weeks. I think Viktor Franklin was saying, give the man a why, he can endure any what, or something like that.
Mhm.
I needed to find a reason to get up in the morning and figure out how to deal with the new situation because every morning is different, every minute is different, and it's challenging, and the pain is real. But how can I turn the pain into not turn the pain? It's the not interpreted the pain as suffering. How can I get it into something that makes sense to me? How to turn the why me into what now? That's how I see it in kind
Mhm.
of hindsight. The spiritual pillar, that's why how I refer to it in the book. There's body pillar, mind pillar. It's obvious how they work together. Everyone has those experiences. But the spiritual pillar to me was a surprising one, and it still give it the ability to sustain. I'm going to turn to the same term, the journey, uh, because it's a never-ending journey, and you need to know why you're taking it, why you're making it, and yeah,
Well, was part of your journey also helped by the support of your family and friends? In other words, you weren't in isolation dealing with this stuff. You may have felt like you were in isolation, but you weren't in isolation.
yeah. The ripple effect of my crash, of my literally falling on the floor here, um, hit a lot of people. The closer you are to me, the harder it hits you. And my wife, she's the closest one,
Sure.
and my daughter as well. And she turned into her life changed the same instant as mine, from being my wife and having her own job and career and responsibilities, and to being all of that and taking care of me and taking care of my responsibility and taking care of the new things that came our way. So she fought her own battle, um, and it made her better. But at the time, it was, I think and I wrote about an article about it just a few weeks ago. The caregiver journey is harder than the patient, than mine at least, because she had a choice, and she makes this choice every morning when she's wake up, and she's my punching bag. I'm angry and I don't have anyone to frustrated, and
Well, you
she's
don't
the
mean a
only one
literal
there.
punching bag, just to
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, yeah. No,
that.
the emotional
Figuratively,
punching bag.
yes,
Yeah,
correct. All right.
yeah,
One thing you kind of slyly ignored that I referenced, and I want to get back to have you acknowledge it. You were a type A personality, correct?
yeah,
Before
yeah,
it happened.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Because it's a whole different world now for you. The writing of the book caused you to reflect more, I'm sure. And obviously, you're taking your material from the notes that you had and your experiences and you're writing it. As a result of writing the book, did it bring back source subjects along the way? What I mean by source subjects, dark moments in your period of coping with all this. Did it bring that back to you, or was it mostly, I don't know if the word is therapeutic when you're writing the book itself based on your notes and then bringing back all those experiences you dealt with?
it brought up a lot. And I every time I read even a page in the book, I get into tears because the memories are still very fresh, they're very vivid, and I remember not just the scene, but also the whole smell, where I was, what sounds were, even the what sense I had on my skin. And many times, very often, I get into tears, which is something you said type A. I was a type A, and type A don't cry. Uh, Crying is a sign of weakness. And to me today, crying is a sign of the opposite. It's not bravery, but it's a sign of being comfortable with my own emotions, being present, understanding that this, what makes me cry, means it touches my emotions in ways that elevate them. And
Hmm.
I am, and everybody, we are all emotional beings. So taking advantage and using those emotions to understand the world and understand our experience, and even when I write a new post or something, or a letter to my wife, if I read it, if it and it makes me emotional, it's a good piece. That's how I judge things. If it's looks too, if it's good but doesn't make me feel anything, then it's good, but it's not me.
Right. You wrote the book too with the understanding that this isn't necessarily for everybody to follow as a prescription because you're not a medical doctor or a professional therapist. You're writing as a human being who experienced this. But it can help people who have no sense of what to deal with or how to deal with something like this. So at least it gives them a framework to work with. And we mentioned the 1% rule, we mentioned the three pillars framework as well, and the humor. Is there another part of your structure that is equally important to those three that I just mentioned? Because not all of those things that you list in the book are equal, I would think, or maybe they are. I'm speaking out of turn if I'm wrong.
I think there's the one principle that is the most important one, and I think is the essential and most critical one to move into the mode of recovery, of healing, is the surrender, is the acceptance of this happened and it's here and I can't force it away. And anyone over a certain age will have a life-changing event. It could be to that person or to the person that they love, but it will happen. And I think it's important just to heal, to understand, to accept, and to cry about it, to mourn about it, to feel sorry for yourself or for that situation, but just accepting it, because only then you can go into healing and into look forward looking. Because when you look backward, you can't progress, at least not good enough. And then there are the seven rules, and you name few of them, and there's few others, and all are important. And these are things that worked for me. In the book, I have after every chapter, after I wrote a book, I wanted to turn to the reader, because I don't like preachers. I have some hesitation about teachers, but if they have a knowledge, I'll learn from them. But I didn't study it. These are things that worked for me, and I'm suggesting an approach to healing. And those rules are what my approach was. And at the reflection space at the end of every chapter, I turn to the reader and suggest here's what worked for me. Just three or four things that you can try, even one of them. Just try it out. See if it works for you. If not, take it or leave it, right? But make the effort, because I think that's what I needed. I needed a way, not just the physical therapy and the doctors and the prescriptions. I needed a way to deal with all aspects of recovery, of dealing with this major, major change in my life and the unknown and uncertainties in the future in all aspects beside career, personal, family life, even the notion of who am I, right? It's kind of it's always in the background. how do you deal with all of that and not s- and make progress and get up in the morning and do your exercises and when is it enough? When is it too much? And what happened for a type A persona like myself that will push too hard and get himself injured and go backward? So there was a rule that don't get injured rule. It sounds so trivial. So why do you make a rule about it? Because I had to. Everything I do, even today, I ask myself, is what the chances of me getting injured? If it is more than 10%, I'm easing it. I'm not doing exactly that. And I need it to be under 10% because I don't want to go back to the hospital. That's
It seems,
especially not, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say, it
Sorry.
seems too that the book, I don't know if you thought about it this way, but I think the book makes sense for people to read before something happens. You said something earlier that, if you live a long life, there's going to be something happening along the way that's going to be life changing. And probably doesn't hurt to read the book ahead of time so you get a sense of what to look for and how to deal with it from your perspective. At least that gives you a leg up, uh, as opposed to something happening to you and you have no idea how to handle it. So I think from a prescriptive point of view, from a preventative point of view, it makes sense to read the book just on that level.
Yeah, I mean, the whole notion is that there is always a way forward. There is always a hope, and there is always a way to get the situation of where you are, even if it's the lowest point of your life, and start building from there. And actually, and you're right. So it can be to people that are haven't had this experience, and that will help them when they have this experience, because it's you can't avoid it, right? Life is happening to us and for us. Um, you can't escape.
So the book is designed for before and after, just not
Yeah,
during because you don't know what you're facing yet. So, but
I think for
before.
during it's so my stroke recovery group, all of them read the book, and the feedback I'm getting is amazing. And they show me the highlight sections of where, and
That,
this
that
is
has to give you some satisfaction,
oh,
absolutely.
unbelievable.
Before I let you go, what if there was one thing you wanted people to take away from reading your book? Again, it's called Beyond 100% Rebuilding Life After It Breaks. If there's one thing you would want people to take away from reading that book, what would it be?
I don't wish stroke on anyone. Um, However, the stroke broke me, and that gave me access to parts of myself that I wouldn't have access before, and allowed me to build something different, beyond my 100%. My 100% is the benchmark, but it's not the right benchmark. It's the starting line. So for anyone that is going through or near someone that is going through or just curious about what will happen, the book is for those moments when your life has been broken, and how to use this as an opportunity, not in the positive, too positive way, and um, making it, not thinking how real that is, dismissing the reality of the sadness and the darkness of the situation, but giving you practical ways of overcoming it and turning it into something that you will eventually look backward and say, this was actually, I'm not glad that I had it, but I made lemonade out of those lemons.
That's a great way to leave it. My guest has been Nir Peled. He's author of Beyond 100% Rebuilding Life After It Breaks. And it's available on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, bookshop.org, and all the usual places. And for everything about Nir, go to nir-peled.com and follow him on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And Nir, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely.
Thank you.
Really
And join
enjoyed
us
it.
every Thursday for a new schmear on Ira's Everything Bagel.